Welcome to this edition of The Explainer. We have a truly monumental matchup to unpack today. The 2026 NBA Finals are officially set, and man, the stakes could not possibly be higher.
Absolutely. Welcome, everyone. We're looking at a titanic clash here. The Eastern Conference champion, New York Knicks, versus the Western Conference champion, San Antonio Spurs. We're talking about the ultimate juxtaposition in professional sports. On one side, you've got the bright lights, the sheer desperation of the mecca of basketball in New York City. And on the other, you've got the quiet, methodical, dynasty-building grounds of San Antonio, Texas. We are so incredibly hyped to guide you through exactly how these two franchises arrived at this epic collision.
So here's our roadmap for The Explainer today. We're going to start with the echoes of 1999, then break down the Knicks' historic playoff run, and of course examine the alien himself, Victor Wembanyama.
Right, and after that, we'll check out the tail of the tape to see how they match up, and finally give you the complete final schedule and viewing info.
Okay, let's jump straight into Section 1, Echoes of 1999.
You know, you really cannot script sports any better than this. As we were putting this together, the historical parallels, they practically jumped off the page. This entire series serves as a kind of like a spiritual sequel to a clash that happened over 2.5 decades ago.
It is absolute déjà vu. The last time the New York Knicks actually made it to the NBA Finals was way back in 1999, and guess who their opponent was? The San Antonio Spurs. In '99, the Spurs were led by a 23-year-old sensation named Tim Duncan, who was just kickstarting his dynasty during that crazy lockout-shortened season. Now fast forward to 2026, and the Spurs are being led by a 22-year-old phenomenon, Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, it's genuinely awe-inspiring to see a franchise manage to land a generational 20-something big man and immediately ride them to the finals against the exact same historic opponent decades later. I mean, Duncan did it as a young cornerstone anchoring a veteran team, right? Now we're watching Wembanyama do it in his third year, leading this hyper-accelerated rebuild.
And when you look at the stats from that 1999 series, Duncan's sheer dominance just jumps right out at you. The Spurs beat the Knicks 4-1. Duncan averaged an incredibly punishing 27.4 points and 14 rebounds per game.
For sure, but we also have to give some context to that Knicks team, too. They were an 8th seed Cinderella story that year. They were largely carried by Latrell Sprewell, who, he had a phenomenal series averaging 26 points. But they just ran into an absolute San Antonio buzzsaw. For Knicks fans, 1999 is this agonizing, painful memory of what could have been. But for Spurs fans, it was the exact moment their multi-decade dynasty was born.
All right, moving on to Section 2, the Knicks' historic playoff run.
So to say the Knicks have exercised some serious demons to get back to this point, well, that'd be a massive understatement. This number right here, 53, it carries so much emotional weight. 53 years since the New York Knicks last won an NBA championship.
It's wild. You have to go all the way back to 1973. We're talking about the black and white television era of Willis Reed, Walt Frazier, Bill Bradley. It's currently the 5th longest championship drought in the entire NBA. Think about that for a second. Multiple generations of Knicks fans have literally never seen their team raise the Larry O'Brien trophy. They've lived through 27 years of sheer frustration since that 99 run, battling front office dysfunction, the ghosts of the 90s, and just crushing playoff exits.
Right, but the number that truly defines this current New York team, plus 271. It's just pure astonishment looking at this stat in the record books. A plus 271-point differential across just 14 playoff games. Honestly, let me put that into historical perspective, because that is the highest scoring margin by any team entering the finals in NBA history. No joke. How do they even do this? It's this perfect combination of suffocating physical defense that just completely breaks opposing offenses, paired with a relentless, highly efficient scoring attack. I mean, they swept the Philadelphia 76ers. They swept the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're entering this series having won their last 11 games straight, and usually by total blowouts.
It's crazy. And when we break down the source of that dominance, it comes back to this masterfully assembled core. Let's start with Jalen Brunson. He's putting up 26 points a game, but more importantly, he's the absolute floor general. He pulls all the strings, navigates the pick and roll with surgical precision, and really, he acts as the heartbeat of this entire franchise.
Exactly. Then you pair his drive and kick ability with Karl-Anthony Towns. Having a legitimate 7-footer who puts up a 20-point double-double every single night while spacing the floor with elite 3-point shooting, it opens up driving lanes that simply weren't there in previous Knicks eras.
Oh, for sure. And then you add in the defensive brilliance of Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby locking down the perimeter, plus head coach Mike Brown's system. Brown has completely transformed their defensive rotations. The result is a team that won 53 games in the regular season, but somehow found an entirely different, terrifying gear in the postseason. Which brings us to Section 3, the alien Victor Wembanyama.
Okay, so the Knicks aren't going to have a cakewalk, though. We have to pivot to the staggering, meteoric rise of the Western Conference champions. Just a couple of seasons ago, the Spurs were at the absolute bottom of the league. Now, under head coach Mitch Johnson, who, by the way, seamlessly took over for the legendary Greg Popovich, they won 62 games.
62 games! And the engine behind that turnaround is entirely unprecedented. Victor Wembanyama's 2026 playoff averages are enough to leave anyone speechless. Offensively, he's pouring in 23.2 points and grabbing nearly 11 rebounds a night. His wingspan and shooting touch make him completely unguardable from the perimeter to the paint.
Yeah, the offense is spectacular, but come on, it's the 3.5 blocks per game that literally breaks the geometry of basketball. Against the absolute best teams in the Western Conference, including an epic 7-game series win over the #1 seeded Thunder, he is completely erasing the basket. Players are actually turning down wide-open layups because they sense him lurking nearby. It's wild.
Which makes total sense when you realize he just became the youngest Defensive Player of the Year in NBA history. And I want to highlight something incredible here. He was first-team All-NBA and finished third at MVP voting at just 22 years old. And not just the youngest DPOY, the first unanimous Defensive Player of the Year. In a league filled with incredible elite defenders, every single voter agreed that nobody impacts the game defensively like Wembanyama. He single-handedly anchored a 40-game turnaround for San Antonio from the 2023-2024 season to today. They literally went from 22 wins to 62 wins because of his presence.
This actually brings up a fascinating historical question we discovered. Can the 22-year-old actually lead a team to an NBA title? The Spurs are the second youngest finals team ever, averaging just over 25 years old. They only trailed the legendary 1977 Trailblazers in that regard.
It's such an interesting debate, right? Usually that kind of extreme youth is a major vulnerability. The lights in the NBA Finals are brighter than anything else. The media pressure is immense. And aside from Harrison Barnes, this Spurs roster hasn't experienced a championship crucible.
Actually, scratch that. It's more like that youth could be their biggest weapon. They play with this fearless, relentless energy. When you have Wembanyama alongside a prime De'Aaron Fox, whose veteran presence and incredible speed perfectly balance the youth, and a young stud like Stephen Castle, they don't seem to know they're supposed to be intimidated. They just play fast, loose, and incredibly confident basketball.
Let's get into Section 4, the tale of the tape.
So let's get a direct head-to-head comparison of how these two 2026 powerhouses actually match up. You have the 53-win Knicks against the 62-win Spurs. Looking at their history this year, they tied their regular season matchups 1-1, with the home team holding serve and winning each game.
But wait, there is a massive, fascinating twist here. They also played in the 2025 NBA Cup Final back in December in Las Vegas. The Knicks won that championship game 124-113.
That is huge. It means this is the very first time in league history that the two NBA Cup finalists are meeting again in the actual NBA Finals. It establishes a massive psychological precedent. These teams already know what it's like to face each other with hardware on the line, experiencing that single elimination high-stakes pressure.
Stylistically, it's a brilliant clash of front office philosophies. On one side, you have the Knicks' veteran grit and extreme patience. They built this team methodically over years. They waited to sign Brunson in free agency, carefully curated assets to trade for Anunoby, traded for Towns, traded for Bridges. It's a seasoned, battle-tested group built for the long haul. Yep, and conversely, you have the Spurs' hyper-accelerated rebuild. They drafted Wemby #1 overall, immediately followed that up by drafting Stephon Castle, and aggressively traded for De'Aaron Fox to push their timeline forward by light years. It begs the question for anyone watching, which philosophy ultimately wins out in modern sports? Patience and veteran execution, or extreme youth and otherworldly talent?
Whichever philosophy wins, history is absolutely guaranteed to be made. The 2026 Finals will officially mark the 8th consecutive year with a unique NBA champion.
Wow. That is the longest stretch of unique champions in the history of the league. Let's recount that. Raptors, Lakers, Bucks, Warriors, Nuggets, Celtics, Thunder, and now either the Knicks or the Spurs. Think about why that matters so much to the average fan, It means there are no foregone conclusions anymore. The era of parity in the modern NBA is alive and well. It makes every single season a thriller, where smart team building and timely peaks matter way more than simply having a preordained super team. It is arguably the best era to be a basketball fan.
And finally, Section 5, Final Schedule and Viewing. So how do you watch this historic series unfold? Well, grab your calendars because you are not going to want to miss a single second of this action. Because the Spurs had the better regular season record, they secured home court advantage. Game 1 tips off on Wednesday, June 3rd in San Antonio. Game 2 follows on Friday, June 5th, also at the Frostbank Center. Then the series shifts dramatically, going from Texas to the Mecca of basketball, Madison Square Garden. Man, it's going to be electric. Game 3 is Monday, June 8th, and Game 4 is Wednesday, June 10th. Every single one of these games tips off at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
Now, if the series extends into the potential closeout games, Game 5 would be Saturday, June 13th, back in San Antonio. Game 6 on Tuesday, June 16th in New York. And a potential winner-take-all Game 7 would be Friday, June 19th in Texas. But hey, we uncovered a really wild detail about this schedule. Notice anything missing? There are 0 Sunday games scheduled. For the first time since 1970, the NBA proactively rearranged the final schedule to avoid going up against a major Sunday night match in the 2026 FIFA World Cup. It just goes to show how the entire global sports calendar is shifting around that massive event. Such a really unique quirk for a historic finals.
For sure. You can catch all of this historic action broadcast nationally on ABC, and the commentary team is absolutely stacked. We have the legendary Mike Breen on play-by-play. Hearing his iconic bang called during a Knicks finals game at Madison Square Garden, spine-tingling. He'll be alongside analysts Richard Jefferson and Tim Legler, with Lisa Salters bringing the crucial insights from the sidelines. It is the perfect, top-tier crew to call a series of this magnitude.
So, the stage is officially set. The historic parallels are drawn, the rosters are completely dialed in, and the entire basketball world is watching. The only thing left to do is tip off.
It all comes down to one massive, provocative question to leave you with. Will half a century of patience finally pay off for New York and end an agonizing 53-year drought? Or is the NBA officially under alien rule as Victor Wembanyama sparks a terrifying new dynasty in San Antonio?
I know we both absolutely cannot wait to find out. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer. Enjoy every second of the 2026 NBA Finals, and we will see you next time.